Hey everybody, welcome to Redeemer. I come to you on this beautiful Wednesday night from Trinity Park or some other recognizable location. I come to you from the woods behind Walmart. Because as you can tell, the woods behind Walmart is where many of our brothers and sisters living with homelessness set up their encampments and their shelters. Now, I tell you all this because I had an amazing conversation with a woman yesterday and I want to share it with you. This woman is from Mississippi, born in Macomb, moved to Texas, and came back about 2 years ago to Brookhaven with a friend. About 2 months ago, she was thrown out of that house. It was a bad situation. And she found herself homeless. Now, she didn't have any experience being homeless, and she had to figure things out on her own. Even those unhoused people we already have in our community weren't willing to kind of share the tricks of the trade, if you will. She said it was the first time that anyone had stopped to ask her if she was okay and how she was doing. She burst into tears. Now, I helped her as much as I could, and even got her to get a copy of her birth certificate so she can replace her lost driver's license. That'll help her get employment and start her own road to recovery. Now, filing for a new birth certificate to get a driver's license, helping with some food vouchers and Angel's Attic vouchers, and getting a bag of food in her hand, those are all simple things we can do, but it speaks to a larger ethos that we as Christians should employ. You see, going to church and being an active member in the fellowship of the community of the body of Christ is important. Basically, what I'm trying to say is going to church and being a good fellow Christian is always a very important part of what our life and baptismal vows require of us. But what's an even bigger part is going out there, pounding the pavement, and doing good. Deuteronomy 15 tells us that we will always have the poor among us, so that we should be very open-handed, giving freely to those who are poor and in need. The Old Testament also teaches us about how farmers would not harvest the corners and edges of their fields so that they could supply food and sustenance to those traveling and needy and hungry along the road. These are very clear examples of how we are to be very open-handed with those in our community, especially those who are most vulnerable and are unhoused. Now, being unhoused, being homeless, as you might say, is a problem, but it's also something we can help alleviate. Those who are unhoused for many, many reasons, including things they can't help, like mental health issues, PTSD, fleeing abusive relationships. It could be drug-related problems or sex trafficking. It could be a myriad of things that we can help with, or things that we need professionals to help with. Perhaps you saw in February, the Daily Leader talked about how the Mississippi United to End Homelessness, an advocacy group, came to this area and other areas around town to talk about how we can share resources with those who are unhoused, helping them get the resources they need. Now, certainly, we do have lots of outreach opportunities here in Brookhaven. We have Outreach Ministries Incorporated, which is located kind of behind and across the street from our church. And then other churches in the area provide food or utility bill assistance, things like that. Certainly we at Redeemer do that as well. But I want to focus on the homeless population in Brookhaven and Lincoln County. Now, as best we know, the population in Brookhaven is about 200 or so unhoused individuals. And of those, most of them are transient unhoused people. They are here stopping for a minute or building up some kind of resource so they can get to a farther intended destination. Basically, we don't really have much of a resource net for people, so they have to go elsewhere to get any help. In fact, if you search homeless shelters in Brookhaven, you get the one in Jackson. And that's not in Brookhaven. Now, my hope is that we would do more for unhoused individuals here in town, because homelessness is not going to go away. Jesus says you will always have the poor with you, and he's not saying don't do anything about it. What he's doing is quoting Deuteronomy 15 that says you should be open-handed and give freely to those who are needy and poor in your land. So if we have about 200 unhoused people here in town, I'd like to see what different churches could do together to create a bigger support network. But individually, I'd like to see you and your family and your friends do something to help the person that you see. Remember that they are just as flesh and blood as you or I, and that there is no otherness about them. Ask them how they're doing. Give them a cold bottle of water. Help out in whatever little way you can, or direct them to a place where they can get help. Because you'll be surprised how many of unhoused people don't know how to be unhoused. They figure it out on their own, and it could either be a very painful, hard process, or maybe a much easier one with just a little guidance. So all I'm saying is that if you see someone who is unhoused, try to be more compassionate than you might normally be. I myself struggle with that, but also stop and don't forget the human aspect of asking them how they're doing, how their day is going. You know, we don't always have to give handouts. We can give just the surplus that's in our car, you know, a water bottle, a granola bar. Even just the compassion of some conversation can work wonders. So I hope that is something that will be some food for thought. Remember that the work of the church is so much more than just worship in a pew. We have a commitment and an obligation to help others, to fulfill our baptismal covenant by reaching out with what we can to give to those who are in need. Thank you for being with me this Wednesday, and as always, dear ones, God bless.